Before you write a single word of your PDD, there are 15 questions you need to be able to answer yes to. If you can't answer yes to one of the hard ones, VM0042 does not apply to your project, and finding that out after 3 months of work is expensive. This video walks through all 15 eligibility criteria, explains what each one means in practice, and flags the 3 that are most commonly uncertain. I'll also run through the eligibility screening tool, Excel template number 1, live, so you can see what the output looks like. Let me use a concrete scenario throughout this video. A cover crop adoption project in Iowa, 350 hectares, mixed tenure, some owned, some leased. This is a realistic project size and a realistic eligibility challenge set. I have the eligibility screening tool open. We'll run through all 15 criteria in order and type the answers as we go. Question 1. Is the land agricultural? VM0042 covers cropland, grassland, and agroforestry. This is Iowa corn-soybean country. Straightforward pass. Question 2. Is there documented agricultural management history of at least 10 years? The evidence can be crop insurance records, county assessor records, grain elevator receipts, or satellite imagery. For established farmland in the U.S. Midwest, this is rarely a problem. If you're working in a region where formal records are less common, plan to spend more time reconstructing historical evidence. Question 3. Is the project activity a management change and not a land use conversion? We're adding cover crops to existing cropland. No forest clearing, no grassland conversion. Clear pass. Question 4. Is the proposed activity listed in VM0042 Table 1? Cover crop adoption is explicitly listed under Module A1. That's another clear pass. At this point, all 4 land type criteria are green. The results sheet is already showing 4 pass indicators. The next 5 questions are where most projects have at least some uncertainty. I'll go through each one, but I want to flag questions 8 and 9 in advance, because those are where I see the most issues in real project reviews. These are not questions you answer in 30 seconds. They require looking up actual data, reading program documents, and sometimes getting a legal opinion. Question 5. Can farmer participation agreements be executed? For leased land, the landowner needs to agree, or at minimum, not object, to the practice change. This is usually fine for cover crops, but check your lease agreements. Some contain tillage requirements. A warning flag here, not a hard fail. Question 6. Is baseline activity data available for at least 3 years? USDA FSA farm data is publicly accessible in the U.S. Most established operations have this. Question 7. Is land tenure documented? For owned land, it's straightforward. For leased land, the lease agreement itself is the documentation. Flag any fields with informal tenure arrangements. Those need to be resolved. Question 8 is where I see the most uncertainty. The question is the practice you're implementing required by any law, regulation, or subsidy program condition? In the U.S., USDA EQIP and CSP programs incentivize cover crops and no-till. They provide payments. That is not the same as requiring them. A practice that's incentivized but optional still passes this test. What would fail? If state or federal law required cover crops on certain acres, for example, as a condition of a wetland mitigation permit. In that case, the carbon credit is not additional because the practice would have happened anyway. Check the specific programs in your project region. When in doubt, get a 1-paragraph legal opinion confirming the practice is voluntary. Question 9. Is the regional adoption rate below 50%? For cover crops in Iowa, the 2022 USDA Census of Agriculture shows cover crop adoption at about 11% of corn acres. That's well below 50%, passes easily. For no-till adoption in some Midwest states, it's closer to 30 to 40% in recent years. Still below 50, but worth documenting the data source explicitly. The key is documenting source and year. Write the sentence. The regional adoption rate is approximately X% per source, year. That is what the VVB needs to see. Stating the adoption rate is low without citing a specific source will generate a clarification request. Question 10. Is the project area at least 10 hectares? This isn't a formal VM0042 threshold, but it's a practical economic minimum. Below 10 hectares, the fixed costs of validation make projects financially unviable. Our scenario is 350 hectares. Clear, pass. Question 11. Can a GPS project boundary polygon be defined? For farmland in most countries, yes. GPS-defined field boundaries are standard practice. Question 12. Is field sampling or process-based modeling feasible? For a 350-hectare project, direct measurement under Approach 1 is feasible. Budget for approximately 12 to 18 composite samples at $400 to $600 each. Question 13. Is this land not already in another carbon project? Double counting check. Verify on the Verra project registry and any other registries relevant to your jurisdiction. In practice, this is rarely an issue for greenfield projects, but it must be verified. Question 14. Is a validation budget of at least $15,000 available? VVB fees alone are typically $15,000 to $30,000. For our 350-hectare project, expecting 30,000 to 40,000 VCUs over 5 years at $15 each, the economics work. Question 15. Is a timeline of 18 to 36 months to first credits acceptable? This is a reality check for the project sponsor. If someone is expecting credits in 6 months, VM0042 is not the right pathway. After entering all 15 answers, run the macro. Run eligibility check. The results sheet populates automatically. There are 3 possible overall outcomes. Eligible, all green. Go directly to PDD development. Conditionally eligible, warnings present. Proceed, but address the warnings before the PDD goes to the VVB. Unresolved warnings become corrective action requests. Not eligible. A hard fail on one or more criteria. VM0042 does not apply. The tool shows a red fail and the specific criterion. Our result is conditionally eligible. 0 hard fails. No criteria are definitively unmet. But 4 warnings. Farmer participation agreements on the leased parcels. Baseline documentation for 2 farms that changed ownership recently. The EQIP subsidy check for regulatory additionality. Need written confirmation, the practice is voluntary. And the adoption rate flagged as a warning to document the source explicitly. None of these are showstoppers. They're items to resolve before PDD submission. All the green pass items, land type, management history, practice eligibility, project area, GPS boundary, feasibility, no double counting, are confirmed. The project can proceed. A red fail on any of the hard criteria, questions 1 through 4, 8, 12, and 13, means VM0042 does not apply. The tool shows a red fail and identifies the specific criterion. There are no workarounds. If one of these fails, the project is ineligible. A yellow warning on the softer criteria means proceed, but address the issue before the PDD goes to the VVB. Unresolved warnings become corrective action requests during validation, which delays credit issuance. A green pass means the criterion is met with documented evidence. Move on. Whatever your result, the eligibility assessment itself needs to be documented in PDD sections 3 and 4. For each criterion, state whether it's met, cite the evidence, and explain your reasoning. This does not need to be long. 2 to 3 sentences per criterion is sufficient, but it must be explicit. The VVB will check each one. Criteria where you've provided evidence get verified quickly. Criteria where you've only stated the criterion is met without citing evidence will generate a clarification request. The eligibility screening tool output gives you the Section 3 framework. Fill in the evidence column before exporting. The eligibility screening tool exports a draft PDD Section 3 table with 1 row per criterion: status, evidence, and reasoning. It also generates the additionality summary text for Section 4, drawing from your answers to questions 8 and 9. Review that text before using it. It's a draft, not a finished legal document. For baseline practice documentation, PDD Section 5, use the baseline documentation template, which is Excel template number 6. That tool and the Section 5 requirements are the subject of Video 3. 3 questions to spend the most time on before you start the PDD. Regulatory additionality. Read the actual program documents. If there's any ambiguity about whether the practice is required or merely incentivized, get a 1-paragraph legal opinion confirming it's voluntary. Common practice adoption rate. Find the published source. State the source, the year, and the percentage explicitly in your documentation. Land tenure for leased parcels. Have the lease agreement in hand and check it for tillage or cover cropping restrictions. These 3 questions generate the most VVB clarification requests. Have your evidence ready before you start writing. Eligibility screening is 20 minutes of work that can save you months. Know your answers before you start the PDD. The 3 questions to spend the most time on: regulatory additionality, common practice adoption rate, and land tenure for any leased parcels. Have your evidence ready for each one. Video 3 covers baseline documentation, how to establish what management was happening before the project started, and how to document it in a way that survives VVB scrutiny. It also covers the full 3-part additionality test in depth. See you there.